at Module 2, Lesson 14. Instead of using the notes in the module, I retyped new notes just like yesterday, so everybody should have the notes in the outbox. In your team binder on top of page 51. Nope, not 51. 55 in your module. So on top of page 55, please put today's notes. Make sure you have your heading on top, and we'll get started. Yesterday, you did good old-fashioned long division. Not going to lie, no, it's not fun. I know it's a little annoying, but it's just something that we have to do and that we have to practice to get better at it. So today we're going to continue practicing long division, but we're going to take it to the next step and look at division with decimal. Okay, so let's start just reviewing good old-fashioned division. What's 8 divided by 1? 8. Suppose I multiplied my dividend by 10 and my divisor by 10. 80 by 10 is? 80. Suppose I multiplied them by 100. 800 divided by 100? 8,000 divided by 1,000? So when I increase my dividend and my divisor by the same amount, my quotient stays the same, right? Just like scaling up our ratios, scaling up equivalent fractions, it still has the same value. What about if I scaled it down and divided by 10? What's 8/10 divided by 1/10? 8. You still have the same quotient. So as long as you increase your dividend and divisor by the same amount, it has no effect on the value of your quotient. Whoop, sorry. Okay, so far so good? Any questions? Okay, moving right along. So we're just going to jump right into the exercises and start with exercise number 1. So Darryl spent $4.68 on each pound of trail mix. He spent a total of $14.04. How many pounds of trail mix did he purchase? All right, so let's picture it like we always do. Let's make that visualization. He goes into the store and he buys trail mix, and it's about $5 a pound. How many pounds did he buy to spend a total of about $14? So it's like $5, $5, $5. So let's take a look. First of all, what's our decimal equation? What would the decimal equation be to solve that? Right, now on your notes, the little door to your house, for lack of a better mathematical term, is missing. And also you can't see the line outside the house. So outside of your graph, you're going to write $4.68. And then under the line, $14.04. So to find out how many pounds of trail mix he purchased, $14.04 divided by $4.68. All right, so now let's estimate. I noticed on the test some of you, for the multiplication, estimated, but then never compared it to your answer to make sure that it was reasonable. So your estimation was about 54, but your answer was like 500 something. So you want to make sure, even if the numbers aren't close, at least you're in the same place value family, tens or hundreds. So what would this estimate be? Now we can break the rounding rules. We can break the rules and round to compatible numbers. Use numbers that divide more easily. So what could we estimate those numbers to? If it's about $5 a pound, he spent about $15, so I would estimate that as 15 divided by 5 equals 3. So write that under your estimate. So if he walked into the store, spent about $5 a pound, bought about 3 pounds, it cost about $15. So we're thinking now the answer is around 3. He bought about 3 pounds. Okay? So now, how is this division equation different than the division equations we did yesterday? Look at the board on the division. What's different about this division equation? The divisor in particular. What were you going to say? Okay, there's a decimal in our divisor. There's a decimal there. When we are dividing, we do not want a decimal in our divisor. Because then we're dividing by part of a number, and then when we're multiplying, we have to move the decimal. It gets a little complicated. So think about the opening activity that we reviewed. Now, a lot of people say you want to get rid of the decimal, and that's not true. We can't get rid of it. The decimal's always there. But we can move the decimal to a friendlier place so it doesn't get in the way.
You moved the decimal over twice, and then when you move it over
So
twice again.
let's make our divisor a whole number. So let's make that 468. So to make, because the decimal's still there, we just put it on the ends, right? It's still there. But when it's on the ends, we don't have to show it. So by making that a whole number, we multiplied it by... No, I didn't multiply it by 2, because that would have given me 8 or 9. If I have to move it over 2 places, 100. So 2 zeros moves over 2. And what do we see in our opening example? If I'm going to multiply my divisor by 100, I have to multiply my dividend by 100. So this would be 1,404. So I know I'm going to get the same value because we saw that in the beginning, 8 divided by 1, 800 divided by 100, it'll be the same. So now go ahead and do your long division. But where would we even start? Well, we have an idea. I could go to my margin, 468 times 3. Let's try 3. 3 might be a little too big. I might have to try 2. Might be a little too small. I might have to try 4. But that's a good starting point. Because I was absent the day we learned our 468 times tables. I don't remember that. So I'm going to use my strategy and go on my margin and multiply. So what is your answer? Alright, so 468 does not go into 1, does not go into 14, does not go into 140, but it goes in 3 times. And that worked out nice and evenly. There's no remainder. I don't have to add the decimal and the 0 and keep going. But now we want to compare. We want to make sure that our answer is reasonable. So we can write a sentence here that shows our estimate of 3 shows that our quotient of 3 is reasonable. Take advantage of that estimating that you did to make sure that your answer is in the right place value at least. And a single digit is my estimate. I have a single digit as my quotient. So the answer would be, he bought about 3 pounds of trail mix. And that's your answer. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. Kareem purchased several packs of gum to place in gift baskets for $1.26 each. He spent a total of $8.82. How many packs of gum did he buy? So set up your decimal equation. So his dividend, his quantity, his total was $8.82 divided by $1.26 each. So set up your decimal equation. And now we could estimate. So he spent about $9 divided by about $1 per pack. So he bought about 9 packs. Now I realize he did not spend $9 whole. He spent less than that. And the gums cost more than $1. So 9 is probably a little bit too high. Probably less than 9, my answer. But at least I know it should be a single digit answer, and it should be a little smaller than 9. But now we have a decimal in our divisor. So how do we make our divisor a whole number? We'll multiply it by 100. So 126 is our new divisor. So I have to now multiply my dividend by 100. And it's 882. So now I can go ahead and use my long division. Now I'm thinking my quotient's around 9. But I also know 9 might be a little too large. So maybe I'll try 8 and see what I get. That would be a good place to start. So our quotient is 7. And that worked out nicely. So we have our sentence, our estimate of 9 shows that our quotient of 7 is reasonable. And the answer is 7 packs of gum. Let's take a look at number 3. So Jared is making candles from beeswax. He has 132 and 72 ounces of beeswax. If each candle uses 8 and 4/10 ounces of beeswax, how many candles can he make? Will there be any wax left over? So our decimal equation, let's write it out. So 132 and 72 divided by 8 and 4/10 ounces. Now, I'm not going to lie. This estimation one's a little obnoxious. So if we estimated this to 120 divided by 8, about 15. Now, if you wanted to estimate it to 160 divided by 8, to me that seems a little more compatible. You get 20. As long as you know your answer is in the tens and not the hundreds, all right, at least I got my decimal in the right spot, okay? So this one I think was a little challenging to estimate, but I would really accept either one of those.
Why didn't you write 130?
Because 8 doesn't go into that compatibly. Still doesn't work compatibly. I wanted nice round numbers that worked out evenly. I probably would have used that one because I could use mental math, okay, even though I rounded it by a lot. So now, my decimal is in my divisor, 8.4. What am I going to multiply it to make it a whole number? 10. So that becomes 84. So then I multiply my dividend by 10. Hold the phone, hold the phone. I still have a decimal in my dividend. Can I have a decimal in my dividend? I can. I can just move it up and divide like it's not even there. My decimal is now in my quotient. I'm good to go. However, put your pencils down for a second. Could I, if I wanted to, make the dividend a whole number? Could I do this? I'll come over here. 13272, where I moved it over 2 places. Could I do that? But what do I have to do to my divisor? I do. So it would have to be 840 as my divisor. You can do this either way. We saw that on the first page with the 8s. We made it 80, or we can make it 800. Both ways are okay. You can make your dividend a whole number too, as long as you're scaling up your divisor by the same amount. Personally, I'd rather divide by 84 than 840, but that's my personal choice. If the second one makes you more comfortable, you can do that too, and I would accept both. Those are both correct because you scaled up your dividend and your divisor by the same amount. As long as you removed your decimal from your divisor. Okay? Any questions on what we did with the green there? Those both mean the same thing. So you can select either one and do your long division and then compare. Then let's think about what our answer is going to be too. So what's our quotient? 15 and 8/10. And then our sentence tells us that our estimation of 15 or even 20, if our estimation was 20, 20 is not that far from 15 and 8/10. They're both still in the tens family, so I know my decimal's in the right spot. It's not like 158 and 20, because then that would set off an alarm. Wait a minute, 158 and 20, one's in my hundreds, one's in the tens, so that doesn't make sense. So at least you know that you have your decimal in the right spot. 15, 20, that's okay. But now let's think about what our answer is going to be. They're asking us how many candles can he make? So if he poured 8.4, 8.4, 8.4, 8.4, how many full candles can he make after he made groups of 8 and 4/10? How many candles can he make? How many candles can he make? He can make 15 full candles. Will there be wax left over? Yes, they'll have some left over. So you want to write that as your answer. So he can make 15 candles with wax left over. He was able to make 15 whole groups of 8 and 4/10, but he did have some left over. Couldn't make a 16th candle. Cupcakes. There are 20 and 5/10 cups of batter in the bowl. If each cupcake uses 4/10 of a cup of batter, how many cupcakes can be made? So put the test down for now, please, and let's follow along. So our decimal equation, 4/10 is our divisor, 20 and 5/10 is our dividend. So to estimate 20 divided by a half, I really don't want to round that all the way up to 1. You could, but we could mentally divide by a half. So dividing by a half is the same thing as multiplying by 2. So my estimation is about 40. Because remember, when you are dividing by less than a whole, your quotient is going to be larger than your dividend. When you're dividing by less than 1, your quotient is going to be larger than your dividend. Okay, so we want to make our divisor a whole number. So 4 into 205. So now when we divide 5, 20, bring down the 5, I have a remainder. Can I have a remainder? No, so I have to add a decimal and a 0, because if I add a 0, it goes from 200 to 2,000. Does anybody know what that decimal and a 0 is called? That's called an annex 0. Like on a building, when they add on an extension, it's called an annex. So that's called an annex 0. So then we could bring down, just put that on my desk, please. So then that goes in twice. 2, add another 0. 5. And then I can stop because I have a 0. So let's compare. So our estimate of 40 shows that our quotient of 51 and 25/100 is reasonable. They're both in the tens family. I would much rather have 50 cupcakes than 40 cupcakes. But it's still, I know my decimal's not in the wrong spot. If I had 500 cupcakes versus 40 in my estimate, then that would be a red flag. Then I've got a decimal in the wrong spot, or I estimated wrong, and I should go back and check my work. But at least they're both in the tens family. But now let's answer the question. how many cupcakes? Can we make a quarter of a cupcake? It probably would burn in the pan because it's so much smaller than the other ones. So how many cupcakes can he make? 51 cupcakes. And then he would have a little bit of batter left over. Not enough for 52. Okay, so you want to think about that with that remainder that's left over. Is that enough for another cupcake? On your homework, you should show the decimal equation. Stop packing up, please. You should show your estimation. Rewrite your new decimal equation. Because if you're like drawing arrows and swooping, then you've got two decimals and it gets confusing. Don't be lazy bones. Rewrite your new equation. Be sure to connect your estimation to your quotient. And then make sure that you are answering the question that they're asking you.